A good day to all you wonderful people. Today I've got something very particular I want to discuss, and I'm eager to hear what you guys think about it as well. Recently we've seen a shift in how new heroes are being designed for IMR. Previously, new heroes that weren't LTE were genuinely pretty weak. It was rare that you'd get the odd Popper or Adkins that would come onto the scene and be really strong. However, over the last couple of months, we've seen every new hero that's come out being really powerful. And I personally think this is a great change for the game, although I do acknowledge that it does come with some issues that I think will need addressing. So just for a little background context, a while back, Jonas, one of the head mods for IMR, reached out to our community, Bushido, for our thoughts and suggestions on the game and where we'd like to see the game go. This was actually one of the things I suggested, as at the time, every team was just LTE. It was beginning to look like, in the future, we were just going to see 3v3 teams in PvP of only LTE units. And in PvE, this was already the case. Full lineups of nothing but limited heroes. And as we all know, LTE are very expensive to acquire, as you can't use Legend Eyes to upgrade their exclusives. Now, LTE being expensive and powerful isn't an issue in and of itself. However, the fact is there just weren't enough strong regular heroes to use eyes on that could fill the roles of LTE heroes. Because of this, we were finding the gap between low spenders or free-to-play players and the mid to high spenders was widening. These players that couldn't afford LTE units to E1, E2, E3 were not able to find replacements in regular or mythic units in most cases. And as I'm sure we all know, most LTE do require E3 to get their ultimate upgrade, if you will. And with regular non-LTE heroes, you only need to get a single copy, and then you can just use your Legend Eyes or Epic Eyes if you have 10, rather than having to get 4 copies of these expensive LTE units. But now we can see this has changed in a big way. At the moment, it really feels like every 2 weeks, every new hero is a banger. PvP lineups are starting to feel a lot more fresh with heroes like Freud, Surtur and Morikis mixing things up. And that's not to even mention staple LTE PvE units like Little Jack being arguably power crept by heroes like Chelsea. The new dungeon and boss content requires a lot of strong heroes of different types, and this supports that too. However, that does bring me to some potential issues that I think may need addressing with this new approach. Although, as I said, LTE copies are much harder to get than eyes, the amount of new heroes constantly coming out means that the amount of eyes that are required to upgrade them is a lot. LTE don't come out anywhere near as frequently as regular heroes, and so although it's more expensive to get an LTE, if you're saving, you can minimise the expense, whereas if we're constantly getting these powerful new heroes, we're going to need a hell of a lot of eyes to manage them. With that being the case, I'd personally say there should be more ways to get eyes, especially for free-to-play or low spenders. I think there's also an argument to be made that the new dungeons rely too heavily on these new heroes. Power creep is definitely a thing. Some of the older heroes are just nowhere near as strong as the new counterparts. I never thought I'd see the day when Nidrold is basically becoming a bad hero, or at least if not bad, very below average. Some of these dungeons and bosses also require very specific tags that only these new heroes have, and that means if you want to push the new content to its furthest extremes, you're going to need these new heroes and you're going to need to upgrade them. However, with that being said, I do believe these potential issues have their own counter-arguments within themselves. I think in a way, we as a player base need to get out of the mindset of getting every powerful hero. I think it's going to become natural for people not to have every strong hero and people's accounts to be different in that regard, and I think that's going to add variety to the game and make things a lot more interesting. Rather than us all using the exact same heroes, we'll all have different teams, different heroes, different PvP lineups, and I think that could be really fun. And although this will definitely benefit the very biggest spenders like your Klee, Bailey, Lord Eric, that can afford every hero at E5, I do think having strong accessible heroes that can use Legend Eyes is going to be a positive experience for the rest of the game. I also feel like the concerns with unit power creep will be addressed as more of these strong heroes get released. At the moment we are missing important tags, archetypes, important roles from certain factions, and over time as more heroes released, I think this will be addressed. At the moment we see these new heroes come out that do things none of our heroes do, and it feels bad when we can't afford to get them. But over time there should be multiple heroes that fill those roles, and although we don't get the original one, we might get an even better one later down the line. But honestly, I'm just glad we're no longer getting trash heroes as new releases, because some of them were really bad. It's nice to see a new hero being released and think, ooh, they look cool, what will they do, how strong will they be, rather than, that's not interesting, they look terrible. And as a bonus positive, this will also improve the legend pool for purple and supreme wishes, and make it less likely you get an underpowered hero like Valentin that just feels terrible. Anyway, thank you once again for listening guys. I'm really interested in what you think about this subject as well. If you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comments. I read and try to reply to every comment, so if you do say something, I will take it on board. And if you haven't already, I'd really appreciate it if you guys could subscribe to the channel. It's been a week now and we're doing great. I'm really loving making YouTube videos, but that additional support by liking, subscribing, commenting would really make a massive difference and be incredible for me and for the channel. So cheers guys, hope you have a lovely week, good night and God bless.